إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونستهديه ونتوب إليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن سيدنا محمد عبده ورسوله ثم أما بعد. All praise and thanks is due to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We thank Him always, we seek His guidance and forgiveness. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to save us from our own mistakes and the sins that we commit every day. Whomsoever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guides to Islam, no one can misguide them. Even if all the human beings and the jinn came together, they could never succeed. And whomsoever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has chosen misguidance for, has chosen to seal their hearts and eyes and ears up to the truth, no one can convince them of that truth, even if all of the human beings and the jinn came together to assist each other in that cause. And I bear witness and testify that there is no God except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is His beloved Prophet and Messenger, a mercy to the worlds. We owe Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala an incredible debt for opening our hearts to Islam. There is none of us, not one of us, could find our way to Islam had Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala not convinced you that Islam was the truth. No matter where you looked and where you searched and what you did, no matter how much money and energy that you spent, no matter how much reading or thinking or soul searching you did, no one can turn that key to your heart to convince you that La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And by turning that key for you, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you a clear and open road to Jannah. The road is in front of you. Once that lock is unlocked, once you believe and are firm in your faith that La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah, you are on the road. But there are challenges on that road. There is a story from among the Bani Israel that although many of you might have heard it, it is relevant every minute of every day. And this is the story of the monk Barsisa. The story is well known. There were three brothers from among the Bani Israel. And the Bani Israel, like the followers of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, are a people that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at a certain time prescribed jihad for them. They had to go and fight. And three brothers were ready to set out in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but they had one sister, a young virgin girl, who they had to leave in someone's care. Now Barsisa was well known in his city as the most pious and religious man. He was a monk. What does it mean to be a monk? It means that he dedicated himself from sunrise until sunset only to the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and nothing else. He was not interested in work. He was not interested in possessions. He was not interested in money. He was not interested in politics. He was not interested in anything except for the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So at this stage of the story, Barsisa is the most righteous and pious person in that city. If you ask anyone in the street, who is the most righteous? Who is the closest to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Who is the most pious? They would all say unanimously, it is this man Barsisa. All we know of him is he worships Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala day and night, and he has reclused himself away from the world. He's shut himself away in a monastery to pray and worship only and nothing else. And he is on that road with the intention to continue on that road until he meets his maker. These three brothers, they came to him and said, Barsisa, we need your help. We are going for jihad fi sabilillah, but we have our sister. Can you take care of her while we are gone? He said, absolutely not. Find someone else. I'm busy. I have a goal. I have a mission. I have a schedule. My life is dedicated to worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I have no time to care for your sister. The answer is no. Simple, focused, clear. And they persisted. They asked him again and again and again, but how can we trust her with anyone else? But you are the most righteous and the most pious. You are the one who has the most taqwa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We don't trust to leave her in the care of anyone else, but we trust her with you. Please, what can we do? And they pestered him and nagged him until eventually he said, okay, listen, what I'm going to do, the only thing that I'm willing to do for you is when I cook for myself once a day, I will cook 2 portions. And I will put 1 portion of food outside the door of my monastery. That's all. I don't want to see your sister. I don't want to talk to your sister. You tell her to come and take the food once a day from my doorstep. And the door will be closed and locked and I will not see her. Finally, the brothers, they agreed. They had no other choice. They said, okay, she will not starve. She will not have to go searching for food or searching for money. This is the best we can do. So they left the sister in his care and they went out for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now at the time, there's no cars, there's no jets. This jihad for the sake of Allah, they could be gone for months, they could be gone for years. Only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows. So this is why it was very important for them to find the most trustworthy person, not just any person, the most trustworthy. And they left. Barsisa kept his word and he would leave food out every day. After a while, the waswasa of shaitan came to him. But the waswasa of shaitan did not come to him and say, you should disobey Allah or you should commit sins. No, the waswasa of shaitan came and said to him, you should earn more hasanat. Because this young girl, she is now leaving her house by herself, unaccompanied, coming to your door and walking back. She's showing herself, she's showing her face. Someone could attack her, someone could rob her, someone could kidnap her, someone could kill her. She is in danger. So you will get more hasanat if instead of leaving the food at your doorstep, you leave the food at her doorstep. That way she just open the door, take the food, shut the door. She is more safe that way and you will earn the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this conversation happened inside Barsisa's mind for some time because we know he's so focused. Initially he said to the brothers, no, not interested, find someone else. And guaranteed, he said to shaitan, no, not interested, can't go down that road, until eventually he was worn down and he agreed not to commit sin, but to get more hasanat, to give more service to this young girl. He started doing that, and then after a while, shaitan came back and said, you should get even more hasanat. This girl is lonely, her family is not there, she's in these 4 walls by herself all day, every day. She's probably bored, she's probably lonely. She could be sick and dying inside and nobody would know. So when you leave the food, you should just knock and speak to her through the closed door so you don't see her and just make sure she's okay. You will get more reward from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And again, this back and forth happened and there was resistance in Barsisa until eventually he said, okay, I will just make sure she's okay. And they would talk for the shortest time through the closed door. Are you okay? Are you healthy? Do you need anything? Yes, alhamdulillah, thank you. Wassalamu alaikum, sister. And he would leave. Slowly the conversations became longer and longer. 1 sentence turned to 2, turned to 5, turned to 10. 1 message, 1 DM, 1 SMS went from 1 to 2 to 5 to 10. Then shaitan came back and said, look, it's a bit silly. You're standing through this closed door and having a long conversation now with this girl. There's no harm to open the door and speak to her face to face. Surely she is missing the human touch, the human interaction, companionship. She's all alone for months now. And so they would stand in the open doorway and speak. Then again, it's silly for you to just stand outside like this. Sometimes it's hot, sometimes it's raining. Why don't you just go inside? And he would go inside. And a short visit became a medium visit, became a long visit. Became from sitting far to sitting close, to touching hands, to holding hands. And the inevitable happened. They were intimate with each other. The same guy that at the beginning of the story, he said, no, not interested. I'm not the one to look after your sister. I'm focused on my mission. I only want Jannah. If it's not helping me get to Jannah, I will exclude it from my life. And now he has committed zina. Nobody knows. The girl is alone at home. Nobody sees her. She doesn't go out. Nobody knows. The signs of pregnancy start to show. 6 months, 9 months, she's now about to give birth. she gives birth to a baby boy. And Barsisa is a father. But of course, whatever happiness was around when the baby was born was overshadowed by guilt and shame and sadness. Don't forget, he has not abandoned Islam. He has not abandoned Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He still believes and firmly believes. But now he has this shame eating him up inside of what he has done and what he has allowed to happen. I am sure that he made istighfar every day. Then it turns out that the jihad was over. The fighting was done. And the troops started to trickle home to this village one after the other. And Barsisa was in a panic. When these three brothers returned, that they entrusted me with their young virgin sister, they're going to come back and find that she's not a virgin anymore and that she has a son. And over time, Shaitan whispered and convinced him that you must kill the child, his own child. And he gave in to that. And Shaitan came to him and said, do you think that this sister will be quiet and not tell anyone what has happened while the brothers were away? Surely she will tell the brothers of what happened, that you took advantage of her, even though that's not what happened, that you took advantage of her and that you killed the baby and you are guilty of murder. So the waswasa continued to whisper for him, and now this is years since the beginning of the story. Who knows how long? Only Allah knows. Maybe 5 years, maybe 10 years, we don't know. Shaitan convinced him to kill the child and kill the girl and bury them inside the house. That way he doesn't have to transport any dead bodies through the town. Bury them inside the house. Dig up the ground, bury them, cover it up. Nobody will know. And that's exactly what he did. The brothers return home. They come straight to Barsisa's monastery. Where is our sister? He cries, and maybe the tears were sincere. And he says, fever overtook her. She became ill. There was nothing we could do. And tragically, she passed away. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. The brothers, of course, they mourn their sister. They shed some tears, and they say, قَدَّرَ اللَّهُ مَا شَاءَ فَعَلَ. This is the will of Allah. And they return to their homes, return to their families, and go to sleep. Shaitan, the same whisperer that has been whispering this whole time, now he comes to the brothers in their dreams, in the form of a traveler. He goes to the oldest brother. He says, your sister is buried inside the house to the right of the doorway. And there is something else that you should see in there. He goes to the middle brother and the younger brother with the same dream. The next day, the brothers wake up, they see each other. One of them says, I had the strangest dream last night. The second brother said, I had the same dream. The third brother said, I had the same dream. The oldest brother, he says, this is nonsense. Don't worry about it. The other two, they say, there is no way that we can forget about it until we go and dig in that spot to the right of the doorway and see what is in there. They go, they dig, they find the body of their sister and the body of an infant. And they go and grab Barsisa. You can imagine the fury, the rage. They grab him and they say, we're going to kill you. We're going to chop you into little pieces. We're going to crucify you. We're going to take you to the king. And he's going to rule over you. And you're going to be executed for what you did to our sister. And they grab him, probably not in a very nice way, and they drag him away. At that moment, Shaitan comes to him just as he is about to be executed. They rule that he's a murderer. And he's going to be executed. Shaitan comes to him in that moment. And Shaitan says to him, I am the one that convinced you right from the beginning. From 10 years ago, I was with you every step of the way. I was the one who told you, take the food to her. Open the door. Check on her. Go inside. I did all of that. And I told the brothers where to find the bodies. And now you are going to be killed. And I am the only one who can save you. Barsisa says, how are you going to save me? He says, if you renounce Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and you worship me, you make sujood to me, then and only then will I save you. And Barsisa, you have to feel sorry for him at this moment. He's lost everything. He has lost everything. And he is facing execution and then Jahannam. And the only voice that says, I can save you, is this voice, who knows in intimate detail everything that's happened so far. Must sound like an expert. And Barsisa made the biggest mistake of his life. And he renounced Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and shaitan ran away. He was executed and he died. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran in Surah Al-Hashr, كَمَثَلِ الشَّيْطَانِ إِذْ قَالَ لِلْإِنسَانِ اكْفُرْ. Like the example of Satan when he says to mankind, disbelieve. كَمَثَلِ الشَّيْطَانِ إِذْ قَالَ لِلْإِنسَانِ اكْفُرْ فَلَمَّا كَفَرَ قَالَ إِنِّي بَرِيءٌ مِّنْكَ إِنِّي أَخَافُ اللَّهَ رَبَّ الْعَالَمِينَ. Like the example of shaitan when he says to mankind, disbelieve. But when the human disbelieves, he said, indeed, I have nothing to do with you. I am innocent of you. Inni akhafullah, I fear Allah, the Lord of the worlds. Who's saying, I fear Allah? Iblis is saying, I fear Allah. I'm innocent of you and your kufr. I fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Lord of the worlds. فَكَانَ عَاقِبَتَهُمَا. So the result of both of them, أَنَّهُمَا فِي النَّارِ خَالِدَيْنِ فِيهَا. So the outcome of both of them is that they will both be in the fire, living in it forever. وَذَلِكَ جَزَاءُ الظَّالِمِينَ. And that is the outcome, the recompense, the payment of those who do wrong. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم والبر الكريم. بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. I did not share this story with you because I'm afraid that anyone here is going to take advantage of a young girl or murder a child. But there are universal lessons that we have to be aware of in this story. In this story, there are lessons for us that are relevant this minute and this day, and especially for the young. But not only for the young, but especially for the young. Number one, shaitan is patient. Shaitan is patient. Shaitan does not have a one-day plan for you. Shaitan does not have a 1 week plan for you. Shaitan's plan for you is a 10-year plan, a 20-year plan, a 50-year plan, a 100-year plan. Shaitan has got all the time in the world. Shaitan has been planning for you and plotting against you since the time of Adam alayhi salam. So don't think that shaitan is a fool, that he's looking for the short-term win. He's not looking for you to tell a lie or steal a paper clip from your office. He's not looking for that. That's not his outcome. That's only a step. But his final outcome is for you to end up in Jahannam. He hates you even since before you were born. He wants nothing but suffering and misery for you, and he doesn't care if he gets it today. He just cares that he gets it eventually. He has long-term goals. How does he go about achieving his long-term goals? Easy. Like any businessman. Incremental steps. He doesn't want you to reach the destination right now. He just wants you to take a step, even a small step. Shaitan does not try to take you into kufr today, but just one step closer. One step from doorway to doorway. From SMS to video call. From DM to meet for coffee. One step, even the smallest step, he considers it a win against you. A long conversation instead of a short conversation. 5 instead of 1. 10 instead of 5. He will just inch you closer and closer. And just as in the case of Barsisa, sometimes he will come to you and say, this is for you to get hasanat. This is for you to get the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. How many things, and I won't say any examples at all, but how many ridiculous things do we see members of our own Muslim community do that are so destructive? The smallest example is different organizations talking badly about each other. Different Muslim organization, this organization is no good. This organization just cares about money. This organization just cares about publicity, and so on and so on. Maybe they think they are doing something good. Maybe they think they are exposing corruption. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. Lesson number 1, shaitan is patient. Lesson number 2, shaitan will take you in incremental small steps. Lesson number 3, we have a natural dislike for haram. We have a natural dislike. Our fitrah doesn't want us to do haram. Even little kids, they know that haram is haram, even if they don't know why they know. However, that dislike for haram can be erased if you indulge in the haram. Listen again. That dislike, the shame, the yucky feeling that you get when you do something haram, if you do that haram enough times, that yucky feeling will go away. Because Barsisa went from more severe to more severe to more severe to more severe. At the beginning, he didn't want to even see the girl's face. Then by the end, he was going inside talking to her all day before the tragedy happened. So that natural dislike that he had at the beginning was not there at the end. His natural defenses, his fitrah that was keeping him safe from the beginning, it was eroded. Why? Because he indulged. Just a little bit. Just a little closer. Just a little more. And then the shame and regret that was there in the beginning was no longer there at the end. So that means that your fitrah can be eroded, can be worn away, can be sanded down, can disappear if you allow it. That's lesson 3. Lesson number 4, Barsisa could have stopped this process at any time. And for you young people on school holidays, Barsisa could have stopped any of this at any time. He could have taken the food to the girl and then refused to open the door and stayed fast. None of this would have happened. He could have opened the door to check on the girl and never set a foot inside. He could have stayed fast. None of this would have happened. He would not be guilty of zina. He would not be guilty of double homicide. He would not be guilty of kufr. If at any point he stuck to his guns and he just said no. He could have stopped at any time. He could have saved himself. And the final lesson is we live in an age where haram is more accessible than it has ever been in all of human history. In all of human history, in the 10,000, 20,000, 50,000, whatever it is years that human beings have been walking on this planet, you never had such access to haram. The haram is in your pocket. All of your pockets. You can pull it out anytime you like and search for haram. And visit haram. And read haram. And hear haram. And see haram. This has never been the case. I'm 42. In my teenage years, if you wanted to see or do something haram, you had to leave your house. You had to go and search and go and find. You couldn't. If you were at home in a Muslim household in 1995, there was no haram there. There's nothing you could do. We didn't even have streaming and such, or YouTube on your smart TV. You had 5 TV channels. If they were showing news and sports, there's no haram there. There's nothing. You don't have access. Even if you really wanted to see haram in your house, you couldn't. These days, it's not the same. So parents, how can you give your child, who is still young and vulnerable, who does not have the sense and the wisdom of Barsisa even, how can you give them a device at the age of 12, 13, 14 that can access anything that has ever been written or photographed or videographed in all of human history? Everything is there for them. How can you do that? How can you? How? And they are with this device in the bathroom, with this device in the bedroom, with the door closed. How? Wallahi, even the best and most innocent and most pure kids, they are going to be curious. Like any child is going to be curious. They are going to be curious. And they're not going to have the intention, like Barsisa, to become a kafir. But I just want to see, what's it about? What does this mean? What's going on? Is that? My dear brothers, as I said in lesson 2, the fitrah can be worn away, can be erased by indulging in something over a period of time. Your resistance to it, your dislike for it will be taken away. You won't feel it, but it will be taken away. And if we, the adults, can sometimes fall into this, even Barsisa, the adult, the grown man, what about the children? What about the children? My dear brothers and sisters in Islam, the lessons in this story are universal. We do not feel the erosion of our iman. But I have some simple tips for you, 2 only, that will effectively protect you from everything that you have seen and heard, whether it's in Barsisa's time or in our time. Number 1, the 3 letters FTR. FTR. What does FTR mean? FTR means from the root. Islam aims to stop the haram from the root, from the beginning. We don't like to walk right up to the line of halal haram and then try not to step over the edge. No. We like to stay far away from the line of haram. Stay far away from the line. Even if you trip here or there, you are still safe. From the root. If you see anything that could turn into a problem in your house, whether the things you listen to, the things you watch with your children around you, the things you read, the things they see you doing, anything that can become a problem, if it's more, don't allow it from the beginning. This is why Islam has rules around khalwa, around men and women being together in private. It's not allowed. It's not allowed. Even long before anything happens, the khalwa is not allowed. That way we stop the evil from the root. We don't let the tree of evil grow and blossom and then we try to cut it down. We don't let the tree grow in the first place. Stop the evil from the root. That's the tip number 1. FTR, from the root. Applies to you and applies to your kids. Tip number 2 is 1 letter, the letter I. The letter I. So FTR and then I. I stands for immersion. When you immerse something, it's like you take something and you dunk it underneath the water, then it becomes immersed in the water. It is really hard to try to be a fantastic Muslim all on your own. It's really tough. It's really tough. Even the companions struggled sometimes, and they said, we see a huge difference in ourselves when we're alone or when we're around you, O Rasulullah. We must be hypocrites. When we are around you, Rasulullah, it's easy to be a great Muslim, but when we're not around you, we make mistakes. This is terrible. So even the companions were affected by this. What's the solution? Don't try to be Superman. Just dunk yourself, immerse yourself inside of Islam. What does that mean? It means come to the gatherings of knowledge. Take your wife and your kids to lectures. Come to Al-Hafiz. And by the way, support Al-Hafiz. You could donate a million different ways on your way out. Just being here. You don't have to be a great Muslim if you're here. If you're here and there's people learning Quran and there's people doing halaqas and there's lessons over there and there's sisters brunch happening in the next room, you don't have to be fantastic. You're just immersed in Islam. You're swimming in a safe ocean. So immerse yourself and your family in Islam takes the load off your shoulders. I'm talking from the point of view of a husband and a father and a man. Because that's my point of view. I can talk to my point of view. As a man, it's really hard to maintain a healthy Islamic environment 24/7 around your wife and your kids. It's really hard. So it's a full-time job. The brother's agreeing with me. But if you just take you and your wife and your kids and you dunk them inside a good environment, you can relax. As a man, you can relax. Because you have the sheikh and you have the other brothers and you have the other Muslim kids and you have the other Muslim sisters and everyone is contributing to keeping your family safe. Don't do all the work by yourself. It's not smart. Put yourself in an environment where the work is being done for you. And you can sit and have a chit-chat with the brothers and relax and talk about sports. It's fine because you're here. But if you're out there, you have to make sure what's everybody looking at? What's everybody reading? What's everybody listening to? What's everybody using their spare time for? It's a lot of work. So work smarter, not harder. FTR, from the root. Cut the evil out of your life from the root. Out of your business from the root. Haram money, cut it from the root. Haram relationships from the root. Haram social media from the root. From the root. Look at the statement that you are making to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala if you actually cut these things from the root. You are saying to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you are the most important thing to me, Ya Allah. If there's a 1% chance that any of these things will take me away from you, I'm going to cut them out from the beginning. And number 2, immerse your family in gatherings surrounded by angels. Places surrounded by angels. Don't do all the work by yourself. It's heavy. It's a heavy load. Share. Use the Muslim community to keep your family safe. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما